faster. And that is kind of hard, as I mentioned in the last video, because I hand build. There's a couple of ways that I can speed up and streamline my production process. Now, one of the first product offerings that I want to focus on is the Sappho's Home mug. What do I mean by that? I think there might be a couple of different decorative styles and colorways that go into mugs that I sell, but they would be all the same shape, the same handle treatment, all of that. And I mentioned in the last video I brought this wooden hump mold. Hump mold means that you rolled out the clay and you put it over something like a hump. And then the other way is a slump mold. So like if you were to use a bowl or an existing mug and you were to put like a sheet of clay into it and then pull it out, that would be a slump mold. And the mugs turned out well, but I think they're too small. So what I want to do is actually use it as a hump mold with a layer of clay, and then actually put an additional layer of clay separated by maybe some saran wrap or something, so that it essentially is like one dimension, one clay wall thickness larger than it is currently. I want the mugs to be significantly larger. I think they need to be wider in diameter, and they also need to be a little bit taller. I am self-taught. I said that I'm not a potter, and getting to really see in real time what that shrinkage rate for clay is when it's fired and how small the mugs came out gives me now a better sense of, okay, how large I need to make the mugs when they're wet and to turn out the size that I want them ultimately. I also think that in addition to just making the mold, the hump mold, the correct size, I want to make multiple. So if I can make a whole set of the same size hump mold, then I can make sets at once. So we're going to roll out some clay. Again, very minimalist setup here. I don't have a studio. I'm outside, which is also kind of cool. And so I've got my wire for cutting clay, the existing hump mold that I'm going to modify. I've got my board that I'm going to work on. And then the house that we're staying in has kind of a bougie pie crust roller or cookie dough roller. Marble. Ooh. So I'm going to be kind of like a bougie girl rolling out some clay, because this is what I have, and I just want to use what I have around me to make some cool stuff. we've got our hump mold in use, and this is how I used it last time. So I put some saran wrap over the hump mold to help with release so that it would come off, and I built a clay mug around it, and then I let it dry a little bit so that it was in a stable place, but not too much that it started cracking, because it'll start to shrink around the mold. And I would pull it off, and then I would kind of clean up the inside. Bob's your uncle. But it was too small. So what I want to do is essentially do it twice. So I have my clay around my hump mold, and now I want to take some saran wrap and do the protective layer again, and then take, let's see, I can get this. And then what I'm thinking, and yes, this is a made up process. This is not like a real technique, but I don't know. Maybe it is now. I'm going to wrap it around again, and then I'm going to take the next slab that I rolled out and start to drape it over, just like I did the first time. So hopefully you can kind of see what I mean, that now it's going to be like one clay wall larger than if I was just using the mold as it was like last time. Gonna let this dry now. Okay, so we're back. It's the next day, and we've got plaster for the mold. We've got just like a little bucket of some water that we're gonna mix the plaster with, and then this is the mold for the mold, if that makes sense. It's not perfect, but I think it's fine, and plaster is super sandable, so I think once I have the plaster piece, I can kind of sand it and perfect it to be something that I want repeated over and over in like the perfect form. But let's just do it and see how it goes. Okay, listen, listen, listen. I know. It's ugly. I'm not going to defend it, but we had to start somewhere. You can find lots of tutorials on how to make stunning molds. Simple molds like this, 2-part molds, 3-part molds on YouTube. This is not YouTube University. Sometimes I like to just like move fast and start, even if I know I'm probably not doing it the right way. That's definitely the case with this. You can tell that the like saran wrap method, because I was too impatient to let the clay dry to the right consistency and then I pulled it out really soon, didn't really do me any favors. But, and you can also tell from the color that despite all of that, I've already used it because it's the holidays, and if you're a crafty queen, then you're making gifts. So we had this cute idea to make some mugs, which secretly I thought would be a great opportunity to test the sizing for this mold that Elio, our son, was going to kind of decorate with finger painting, and that would be given to each of the grandparents. So it looks crazy, and it's already got clay on it, but it's had a chance to finally cure really slowly with all this humid weather, and now I think we can maybe sand it down and potentially save it. This is all an experiment for me. I did go ahead, and since I was already using it, use it as a slump mold with some clay and fill it again with plaster to make the second mold so we could double our production speed if this is the method we're using, and made this one, which looks a ton better. It does need to be also kind of sanded and cleaned up. I stuck a stick in it to pull it out, which didn't end up working. And just for reference again, this is the original that we used, and this is the new one. So we are talking about, you know, it's subtlety, but it is a pretty significant change in diameter. Lastly, I've also used one of my favorite bowls to make a slump mold for a slightly smaller version of that bowl for a bowl plate or a plate here. So my goal is maybe tonight before we leave for the holidays, if I'm lucky, I can make a few more of the plate ones. I'm not sure. We're going to just do as much as we can.